Well, Jeff Lutz is with me as always on Wednesday. And Jeff, thanks for joining up. And I have to ask, I have to ask forgiveness. I have to ask
Okay.
forgiveness for CalPERS.
Yeah.
My mother actually gets a check from them. My 98-year-old mom actually gets a check from them every month.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Yes, yes, but I have to apologize.
She's definitely excused. They are not.
Yeah, I guess she's left the CalPERS has left open the possibility she could be persuaded, though. She says, she was meeting with Tesla, and I guess they'll have the investor relations department will have a chance to persuade her.
Oh, good. You 11x the company over that time period. I'm not sure. We're talking about the prior compensation, not the new one. I
Yeah,
agree, debate the new one to no end of like what kind of hooks, what kind of protections you want in place as a large investor. But man, the prior one, things were met.
and no kidding, in spades. Okay, well, I tell you what I want to do today. Um, you and I discussed the 2026 theory, I think probably months ago. And I think pretty much you agreed with me that by 2026, everything of consequence is kind of going to be in motion. It'll be produced. FSD will be complete. Robocab will be happening. Optimus will be shipping. Semi-truck will be in production and shipping. Dojo, to the extent that they decide to make it a product, it'll be happening by then. That at some level of certainty, 95%, pretty much everything will be ready to go in 1996. I mean, 2026.
Back to the future.
Back to the Future. Yeah. So I presented that theory for a year now. Actually, I had first talked about it in, I think it was June of last year. June 18th of last year was the first time I brought up the 2026 theory. And I have a new theory.
Let's hear it.
My new theory is that by July 31 of 2025, just 14 months from now, all of this will be far enough along. Everything I just listed will be far enough along that even the dullest bulb on Wall Street will acknowledge that these businesses are, as Gary Black tries to always paint it, something that could be put on a spreadsheet and where earnings could be projected. So, what do you think about my new theory? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I can't speak for the dullness of and their ability to be able to model something like this. It's difficult. I understand it, but it's more of a question of trying to time it and be cute. And we know that they're always late. That's the thing we know. We know they're always late. Jensen Wang was talking about AI, was talking about the enablers to AI and the kind of like the total available market for it. The fact that these CPU based servers and data infrastructure be swapped out with GPU based to be much more efficient and capable of much more compute. And there's another $1 trillion of swap out that's going to have to happen to do that. And he wasn't listened to. Nvidia was a $120 stock in the fall of 2022, and now it could be a $1,200 stock tomorrow,
Right.
and it's even after split. And I just they were late for that, and there was all this investment happening. Every hyperscaler told you that they were buying the silicon. The supply chain checks were telling you what was happening, and they were still behind on this stuff. Like the stuff was actually cranking and moving and getting up to speed in Taiwan and other parts of Asia, and they were still behind. So they're going to be behind on this one. This is not an easy story to put together for some. If you're just looking, if you're just trying to do everything kind of like current quarter, how many they ship next quarter, how many they ship, and how many cars are they introducing. But there's no other car company that has all these businesses that are sprouting. and really far along and demonstrating great capability. Um, so they've been late before, they'll be late again, is kind of the way I see it. And that's your alpha as an investor. And I'm not giving you advice on what to do or when to do it. I'm just telling you that that's how alpha is created.
Yeah, so some of the things that are actually already happening, we've got the Cybertruck. By the middle of next year, it should be probably at a $250,000 run rate and potentially increasing from there. And the market should have been able to get a flavor for how many people are going to agree to accept their deliveries at real prices, 80,000, 70,000, 60,000. The future TAM, people might be able to get their handle on that. And the comparisons between some of the Fords and Chevys that might be out by that time might also be more obvious. So that could be a pretty significant piece of the pie by then.
Yeah, well, and since our last broadcast last week, I picked up my Cybertruck, and a couple of the conclusions I've come to is it's a special product. It's a generation product. When you sit in it, when you feel it, when you drive it, it's even different than just like seeing it in the showroom. I think seeing it in the showroom is one is if you haven't seen it live, I think it will have an effect on you when you see the product live. But when you actually have the chance to sit in it and press the start key, or just, press the accelerator and go, it's a whole different level. And I think only Tesla could have built a product like this. When you look at what's involved with the technology, the metallurgy, for example, only Tesla could have built a product like this. And you'll see, there'll be people trying to copy things that Tesla does, but Tesla's already working on the next thing. And but when I just closing on Cybertruck, it's a once in generation product. It is very special. I think only Tesla could have built this product. And I think we're only seeing the beginning when there's actually FSD running on it. And potentially maybe, a large language model like a Grok running in the future. I just think it is a special product. It's only going to get better. It's stunning in person, and it's stunning to, I'm thankful to have the opportunity to own it. And so that sounds like a lot of words, but it's reality. And you're right, when the MSRP structure is more aligned to what consumers are willing to pay for vehicles, they'll sell more. They're going to sell a lot just at the foundation prices. There's no sign of this momentum stopping. They could do in my opinion, they could do the foundation series in every country that they sell EVs in today, and have a foundation series running in all of those countries just to cover, the distribution costs and still the early production, issues that they're working through. But I believe that they've crossed over to a kind of a new rate probably in May.
Okay.
And we're starting to see them come out at a more consistent clip. And to me, that tells me they're solving problems. They're opening supply. They may have, they've been hiring for that next shift. Maybe that shift is up. I think in the beginning, that shift has been working through bottleneck operations and just handed it off back to their primary shift. But a lot happening in Cybertruck world. I think it's really good. I think people love love their Cybertruck, and I just can't say enough about the product.
Okay, so you have some significant auto industry background, maybe even some current auto industry background for all I know, and maybe you're able to talk about that or not. Is this a truck, which seemed to be the biggest issue?
I don't have a significant, I mean, I'm a connoisseur of autos, but I've not
Oh,
worked in the auto industry. I've worked in the tech industry,
okay.
and I've worked in the materials processing side of it, from raw materials to finished products. So I have a very good appreciation of what it took to make a product like this. And yeah, I don't know if you would classify it as a truck. I would have never bought a standard pickup truck in my lifetime, but I bought this product because it doesn't look like a standard pickup truck. So yes, it's crossing over. You can't use the TAMs for pickup trucks. It's a new TAM.
All by
And
itself.
Yeah, it's all by itself, and the detail and wrapping companies are just jumping for joy because everybody wants to,
Wrap it.
to do something unique. I just love the look and the feel of the bare metal. I think it's amazing. It harkens me back to the original Motorola Razr, which was a very special
Yeah.
product for a lot of people, and I worked on that product. And yeah, so anyway, I mean, we can talk
Right,
all,
right,
you
right.
know, the whole show about it. It's a special product, and it's transcending categories to your point, to your
You
question.
know, I had lost track that you just got yours because so many of the people that I interview already have their Cybertruck, and sorry, we're going to wait till it's 65,000, so that's probably going to be February or March, but we
Yeah,
have our number.
yeah.
Uh, so also energy storage will be 100% ramped in California soon, I'm sure, and probably 50% ramped in Shanghai by the middle of 2025. So that should be able to be also something that can be easily spread out at that point. There should be some of this bookkeeping nonsense with regard to when to be able to record the sales and profits should be clear. That should be way more clear a year from now. So the energy storage division at that point could be running very, very close to the equivalent of 300,000 automobiles, something on the order of, well, more than that, maybe. See, I'm thinking on the order of 30 billion in sales, which is a lot of automobiles.
Yeah, no, I the 50%, I think they're going to come up at some point in the first quarter. The 50% by the second quarter is little bit of a stretch, but maybe if this was one source of supply and then we were just bringing up a new factory, I would say I would bet on China getting to 50% run rate to your point. But I think they're going to have to bring up new sources of supply that are localized. And while that will be faster in China, I don't know if they're going to be at 50%, but maybe I wouldn't call it impossible. Uh, but I'd have to think through a little bit more about that. I haven't actually given that enough thought. I just know that I think it coming up in the first quarter is likely. And I would put it on more of like 25 to 35, 40% maybe in the second quarter. But yeah, it's coming up. We're going to have two sources of energy supply in the middle part of that year.
Yeah, so we have the Cybertruck, let's say at 250,000 run rate, which is the equivalent of 500, I'm sorry, 200, yeah, which is the equivalent of 500,000 of the new model 2.5 or whatever, 25,000, more than that, probably more than double the number of whatever new car is supposedly coming out. And then we've got this product, which is going to be somewhere around the $30 billion level, which is 30% of current sales. So those two alone would be significant, but I think we'll have robotaxi by then, don't you?
Yes, I think robotaxi will start and iterate in a form of human driven in the beginning. I think that's what they're preparing the app for and the experience for right now. And then basically as the software improves, the presence of humans declines or the necessity for them declines. So it really it's all going to depend on how big a leap of this 12.4 and 12.5 are. It's really these milestones are actually really important for Tesla. And I'm not as worried about the fact that 12.4 is a couple days or even a week, um, quote unquote, behind. Behind a what? Like who else is
Right.
releasing a 12.4 in the world or industry that will have the equivalent capability at the cost structure Tesla's doing? But whatever, it's behind what Tesla originally promised by a couple days, and I'm okay with that. It's more of like, is it really that 5 to 10x
Yeah.
improvement? And it's going to be hard for us as even users because, well, maybe. I mean, maybe if you are having enough interventions, you should be able to see a 5 to 10x improvement within a day or two, pretty quickly. So, um, but for others, it may take them a little bit more driving to see that. But I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the new functionality. But yeah, if we get these big jumps in 12.4 and 5, then yeah, the I think the robo taxi, by the middle part, yeah, I always like to think through that the same way you're thinking through it, Randy. Is like, where do we think we're going to be a year from now? And you're saying 14 months.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be dramatically far ahead because we're now operating. We're not as human and CPU constrained as we used to be. Now we're GPU constrained, but we're unblocking that at pretty. Just the compute capability of GPUs is just far outmatches, you know, regular heuristic code
Right.
development and CPU driven product. And I just think we're on new timetables that I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised a lot. But let's see.
So
Let's be pleasantly surprised. And
yeah,
then
so we'll be pleasantly surprised. So just for fun, what do you think happens to the valuation of Tesla if robotaxi is operational without a human driver? Just, it's ready to go. It's being deployed, even if it's only in some cities of some countries, but it's being deployed. It's been out there for a while by July of 2025. And now it is just a matter of expanding, putting it in more places.
yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things where there's going to be a jump, and the question is how high, and how long does it take for it to be realized? Like, are people going to have to start seeing, like, are they going to have to start seeing significant earnings print? Are they going to front run it? Um, it's hard to say. I think people are the sentiment, and which could flip pretty quickly on Tesla, but it has definitely been negative, more skewed, more negative than positive over the last 3 years. So you're going to have a pretty special moment that honestly flips the sentiment around the name. I think you're going to have a lot of noise, though. Remember, Tesla doesn't live in a bubble. There's geopolitical issues. There's domestic political issues. And so you even have this vote coming up. Amidst all this progress, you have, are we going to pay the guy for the last six
Right.
years of work that he delivered early? So you even have that kind of stuff happening. So that's why I tend to be a little bit more conservative. But um, you know, a year from now, how much closer are we going to be to Optimus? Kind of like being an everyday factory life, and
Right.
just all these things inch closer and closer. Um, and so we'll see. A lot of companies are teasing $25,000 EVs. I think the Chinese can build them. I don't know if they can build them profitably yet. I honestly still don't know the answer to that question, because there's a lot of creative accounting and it's not clear. Um, but there's even Stellantis and others talking about a $25,000 Jeep. There's, GM just teased the new Bolt. But I think these are just cars. They don't have full
Yeah.
self-driving. They don't have the robotaxi capability. They don't have,
Over the air
potentially
upgrade.
Grok enabled inside. Like, these are just going to be cars. So now it comes down to Tesla isn't competing on bending metal as much as now they're going to put themselves in, the red ocean, blue ocean thing. They're going to potentially hoist themselves into out of this red ocean of auto into blue ocean, and when that happens, I think that's going to be the special time for the company and
All
its
right,
valuation.
so that raises an issue I didn't send you in advance. And so this is something that I think you would have a great specialization on. I think I do too, but I
Yeah.
really want to hear your position on it. So we have a boatload, not of just $25,000 vehicles, but all kinds of vehicles. New Chevy pickup, new Ford pickup. I mean, well, the Ford's not that new now, but I think they got another one in the works, I think. We got all kinds of different vehicles. Cadillac's got their announcement today as well. Does this hurt Tesla even in the short or middle term, or does it actually help Tesla by creating massive amounts of more chatter, more advertising, more PR, more talking heads, influencers talking about all these new electric vehicles, to where now the electric vehicle becomes something that is mainstreamed, and with all that conversation, you actually get Tesla with a benefit?
Yeah, it's a great question. The one thing that Mary Barra has said that I've agreed with is that the death of the EV was, premature, pronouncing it, dead. And she goes, we're somewhere in between. And honestly, I think it's kind of a bit of a dirty trick, but a lot of these automakers are basically buying time. I think they worked on the media side. I think they worked on the ad side and say, hey, look, I know we were doing Super Bowl ads in 2023, left and right, and we were showing this EV future, but we actually tried to bend metal in the factory and make batteries, and it costs a whole lot more than we thought it did. So we're not going to do that. We're going to announce the products. We're going to put a few hundred or 1,000 out to say that we're doing it because we're taking government money, we're taking all these loans, we're doing all these things, but we're not going to meaningfully put it out there in volume. And we're going to tell our suppliers we're pulling back as well. And we're going to ship more hybrids. And by the way, we're going to work with our lobby. We're going to make sure that IRA covers every hybrid that we make as much as possible. And that's the only way we can compete with Tesla, wink, wink. So that's what's happened. Yes, I mean, if we get off of this thing that EVs are bad, I mean, they've literally turned the advertising, they've turned the financial media to like EVs are like bad products, like they cost too much, their resale value is bad, the batteries are bad, you're gonna have to replace them. Like, well, yeah, if you built a bad product, you're gonna have a bad experience. So those 60,000, 70, $80,000 EVs that aren't Teslas are in trouble. And now if they can come out with this new wave in the 30s and 40s, but even they both said it that they don't know how to make it profitably, this decade. So I'd love to see if something's changed. I don't think anything has changed except the fact that some of the raw input commodities have come down.
Mhm.
And the supply, the cell level supply of LFP has gone way up, and they're probably getting, like, they announced the Bolt with LFP, they're probably going to do the Jeep with LFP, and so they're probably projecting that we're not going to live in an IRA world in maybe a 2 years time.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so they're just saying we're gonna take this stuff in from China. But I think that's going to be a very, very dangerous proposition. I don't, if you're not onshoring LFP, I think they're in a very dangerous spot where they're going to be asking for, the new president, hopefully, or whatever president's in there, for some sort of exclusion on the tariff. And it's already up to 25%.
yeah.
So like Rivian, for example, announced that they're going to LFP. And when they made the decision, it was a 7% tariff. Now it's a 25% tariff.
Right.
So long answer, but I think it's going to help. I think it's going to help that they're going to change the sentiment back from it being toxic to being okay, and now we're going to go back to competing. And you're going to see, we're going to go from 1 million to 1.5 to 2.5. They're talking about 2.5 million EVs in the US and by next year, and we're only at like, we finished last year at like 1.1. So I
Yeah.
mean, there's going to be a lot of growth.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. So my experience has been, and my of course, being in the bicycle industry, I always use those examples. But I started my career in the bicycle business with a 4-pound lock set. And everybody looked at this 4-pound lock set and went, Randy, what are you kidding me? And it was very hard, even though there was a lot of security issues during the oil crisis when I first started out. And but selling a 4-pound lock set was hard. But then along came something you're probably familiar with called kryptonite.
Yeah.
And kryptonite was a 3-pound lock set. It was a U-shaped lock, they called it. And then came Citadel, and it was another U-shaped lock similar to kryptonite. All of a sudden, with 3 of us out there, 3 of us selling very heavy, very secure products, all 3 of us went crazy. All 3 of us we could sell all the product we want to. And that's been my experience in the past with a new category like this, so a big old change. You really need more than one person talking about it because your what do you want to call it? Your bona fides go up. Your people be, oh, well, if it's not just Tesla and it's all these other people, then there must be something to it.
Yeah, but there's something that has to happen. Like I don't think the full lobotomies happen with like the GMs. Like something has to happen with the dealer network. Something has to happen with the way that they engineer service plans and like, here, I'm going to sell you this $30,000 car, but I want to sell you a $5,000 service. Like
Right.
this stuff
That's
has to change,
that's
or I still think that they're going to struggle. And I think they're slow on supply chain, and I think they're going to get clipped by the tariffs. And and they've stalled a lot of the construction of of onshoring for EVs. So I think they're making some promises. Remember, they made promises for the
more.
Equinox and
Yes.
for the Silverado and for the Mustang and for the F-150. They made promises of, about capacity, about models, and none of that came true. So now why are we supposed to believe these new promises? I don't know. Unless something structurally changes with the companies, or unless they go away and they come back in a different, that my prediction has been that they can't compete against the Chinese and Tesla in their current forms. Like they're structurally insolvent.
Right.
And I think we could have a long, I think I think that's worth a longer conversation, because I could be wrong,
Mhm.
but I don't know if they can structurally compete with the way that they're structured today. I don't think Tesla, by the way, if Tesla had to ship into a dealer network and had to add 30 or 40 more days of supply and had to add all of this, overhead and cost, I don't know if Tesla could compete with Tesla today. So
Yeah.
that's the other thing. Like
Yeah.
put Tesla into their model. I don't think Tesla could
Tesla could.
compete.
Yes, I
Yeah.
get you. And besides that, Tesla has all these other advantages in terms of their return on invested capital and their manufacturing capacity, capabilities, et cetera, which also makes it difficult. I want to switch to the economy because I know you have a limited
Yeah.
amount of time. What was your, so let me just start with that. Let me do the setup here. The Beige book came out today. This is the federal government's, they put it out 8 times a year, and it reviews the project, not just the current, but also the projected state of the economy. And they use independent, all 12 regions come in with their own independently arrived at numbers.
Yeah.
Now, the reporting today seems to be clear. The economy is slowing and has almost stopped growing. Inflation might be slowing a bit. It's not that clear, but it looks a little bit like it's coming down. But it's not nearly to the Fed's requirement for the 2%. Labor is growing very slowly, if at all, and wages are no longer increasing quickly. In fact, they suggest that it might be down to the pre-pandemic levels of increases, more like normal, what they called it. And businesses are more pessimistic than they were. What did you think about the Beige report today?
Yeah. I think there's some mixed data, but I do agree that there's cause to be a little bit more. There's there's a reason to be a little bit more concerned, but I think some of it's a mixed bag. Like the w- the rate of what you want to look at on wages, for example, is you want the rate of growth to be greater than inflation, like meaningfully greater. And I actually think that it's at least on par, if not better, than the growth on inflation. I mean, I should double check that, but I believe that we've recently achieved that. It's still way behind like the cumulative inflation that we've taken over the last 2 to 3 years, but it's finally at where it's like at least keeping pace and maybe slightly ahead. Um, Jobs, I mean, we're not at a terrible spot, but I mean, I think you're going to see a four handle pretty soon. And I don't think anybody's going to lose their mind then. But if it gets to like 4.2, I think you may see some. If you saw a premature 4.2 like in the summer,
Mhm.
I could see the Fed taking action sooner than later. Um, it it looks like the consumers bifurcated. It looks like the higher end consumers are still doing okay. They're feeding off the stock market. They're like they feel good about themselves and their spending. And it looks like the lower end consumer is getting hit again. And even call it the middle class with inflation, and but they're employed. So it's a that's why I say it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think you could start seeing, GDP. We've been predicting the fall of GDP for a while, but it keeps coming in and surprising. But I'm in the camp that I think inflation is being a little bit over reported I think we don't use real-time high-frequency housing data, and I think we're in a much worse position. When I say worse, I mean less inflation in aggregate, but we still have a problem with like the cost of food. We still have a somewhat of a problem with the cost of energy, although it's improving. So, but I certainly wouldn't be in the hike camp, and I would be trying to prematurely, I would try to get at least two cuts in this year, but I think we're between one and two. And I think the Fed will update their dot plot. I think we get PCE at the end of this week, I think.
We do.
And then I think the next Fed meeting, we get a new dot plot. And I think that one's going to be, that's the June one. I think that's going to be interesting if we're at one cut or two or none. If it's none, I think you may see a little bit of a market reaction. But I actually think that inflation in the beginning of the year was a blip. It's gone, and I think we're gonna cool off again. That's what I see is going to happen, and I think you're going to get a little bit more of a, you may get some more kind of momentum into the summer, but we'll see. Not
Yeah.
investment advice.
So then the other side of, so let me just throw out a couple of other thoughts here. 70% of the economy is of course, the consumer. As you point out, and I agree with you 1,000%, we have got a bifurcated. It's the upper 50% is doing pretty good. The bottom 50% is tapped out. They are already tapped out. The Beige report said that they're cutting back. Other reports have said they're even cutting back things like going to McDonald's. And so it's hard to imagine that the consumer will be spending more in the third quarter than they were spending in the second quarter. Hard to imagine. By the way, the revised GDP comes out tomorrow. It was 1.6 for the first quarter. Now it's looking like what do you call it? The economists who are polled think it will come down to 1.2%.
That's a big drop.
In the revision. Yeah. We'll see what happens tomorrow morning on that. So, but 70% of the economy is the consumer. I don't know how they're going to be spending more in the third quarter. Then you got the government is another 15%, and they were dramatically increasing their spending in the third quarter last year. They don't have any way to do that this year. They don't have a new infrastructure bill or anything else to be spending that additional money. So it can't come from them. Do you think, is there any chance that all the businesses are going to be dramatically expanding their CapEx, which is the other 15%?
Well, we know the hyperscalers are. We know some of the hyperscalers readjusted their second half but it's all going to Nvidia. So I don't think this is like, this is not, hitting necessarily going to be, hitting, all these. Yeah. So we know that they're increasing CapEx, but yeah, no, I think, I it's interesting, and we're in an election year too. So you've got all these variables that are spinning. You've got China. I mean, they're who knows, but they're certainly not pulling back from their rhetoric around Taiwan. So I just think you have a lot of different variables. I think on the economy, though, I'm going to be interested to see what they say about Q1 and where they think Q2 is going to be placed. But all the retailers are coming out and saying, "Hey, look, the lower end consumer is definitely tapped. There's not even really anything that they're trading down to. Like, where do you go? I mean, from McDonald's, I guess and even McDonald's came out today and said since 2019, our prices are up 40%.
I know.
I mean,
it's crazy.
Yeah, this is hurting people. This is killing people.
Yeah. You go into a McDonald's and it's hard to get out for one person. It's hard to get out for under $13, $14. And that's with no tip.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
The screen around.
I know we're up against your break here, but I just wanted to finish off by adding some more negatives.
Yeah.
Housing is not going to grow this year. Auto, according to the Beige book, is flat to down. Manufacturing is flat to down. I just don't see where it's going to come from. I'm having a very hard time figuring out how we are not at zero in the third quarter or possibly dipping into the negative.
Yeah, and who makes these? And is this coming out from the Bureau of Labor? Like who's who's publishing the GDP number, and is there kind of a I know I hate to be a conspiracy theorist, but what's going on with these numbers? They're being restated. Forget about GDP, the
Employment
employment
numbers.
numbers, just they're all over the place. Even the CPIs and PPIs are being restated. We had disinflationary PPI the prior month when we thought it was a miss. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
so I do get a little bit of concern, but yeah, I think your points are valid of like, where's the growth going to come from? I think it's a great question.
All right. Well, thank you as always for coming on. I took you overtime for the first time ever. I've always gotten you out of here.
You've been great on time. We're good.
All right, good. All right, thanks. So I'm going to continue on with where we are in the markets right now, but thank you again for being on.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. Take care.
All right, bye now.
Bye.
All right. So yeah, I hate to be that guy. But again, the balance. The balance of this particular show is we started out talking about Tesla. I don't think that there's any question. I don't think that you just heard Jeff Lutz. Jeff Lutz has a huge amounts of experience at high levels of C-suite level work. Really understands markets. So on the one hand, I think Tesla is going to do amazing in the next 12 months. It's going to be a matter, maybe it's slow. You've heard me say that I think the Tesla stock will be at 700 by the end of the year. That is 100% based on the idea that the street figures out that FSD and RoboCab is a thing. If they don't figure it out by the end of the year, we can't be at 700. It's 100% based on that. The normal stuff, yeah, we could be back at 300. We could be back at 350. I don't have any question of that. As the Cybertruck continues to ramp, as Shanghai continues to ramp, as we see these new vehicles, on August 8th, as all the things that are normal. Yes, we could be back maybe we only get to 275 or 280 this year. But that's a nice doubling. But if Robotaxi or RoboCab or of course, FSD would be at the same time. If that becomes real to the investing public, then that's where I see the stock beginning to take off like crazy. Could it take all the way to July of next year before people get it? Maybe. And then there's Optimus. Optimus is clearly, once we see Optimus in a ready-to-go package, all right? Yeah, a lot of stuff can happen between now and then, showing Optimus doing useful tasks, having it actually on the production line out in some of the Tesla factories, showing it in doing different kinds of things, maybe giving it a voice and beginning to show a little bit of that side of the capability. All of those things are going to help. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Maybe there will be an announcement with regard to Dojo as a service. That could be a huge benefit. All those things could just make it even more exciting in 2024, but I'm saying all of those things will be clear by July of 2025. So that's my new theory. That's my new date. That's 14 months from now. It's not that far away. It's something that we can, now, what does that have to do with 2026? Am I talking about for a year now how important 2026 is? Well, 2026 is the year when all of these things are in full production. That's the difference. 2026, everything's in full production. Optimus in full production, robotaxis, robocabs, Gen 3 vehicles, Cybertruck, semi-truck, energy storage, go right down the line. Everything that we've been talking about, everything is in, not just we'll show it to you next month, or we're going to get ramping up in next year. No, all of these things will be in full production in 2026. So at that point, it's who knows what the stock goes to. We've already heard 2027 numbers from Kathy, 2028, maybe it's going to be 2000, but that didn't count Optimus and it didn't count Dojo as a service. So 2000, 4000, 5000, who knows? The numbers really get crazy. Okay, so that's the optimist. That's Randy, the optimist, optimist. And yes, to me, it's not even optimistic. To me, it's just a matter of execution now. And as Elon has said, I'm not sure it matters that much whether he's still on board or not. He says, look, yeah, I can help push forward Optimus faster than if I'm not there. But he says, if my home planet called me home tomorrow, FSD is done. It's just a matter of time. So I'm not worried about any of these things not happening as a result of Elon's presence. I said this morning, if you didn't see my video this morning, I don't have not the slightest doubt that Elon is going to be staying on board no matter what happens to the vote on the 13th. But I do think that these things that I just laid out and that Jeff basically agreed with me pretty much down the line this is a ramp that is hard to imagine being sidestepped. Now, on the other side of the coin, this is not a pessimistic Randy. This is a realistic Randy. I am not looking for a 2008 type of recession. I'm not looking for a 2000 type recession or a 1991 type recession. Remember, I've written books on recessions. I've studied it deeply. I did not see that. Well, the 1991, it might be a lot like the 1991 recession. It was 2 quarters. It was very shallow. The response afterward was absolutely fantastic. It set off the 90s. It's like, would we like to have the 90s over again in terms of growth, in terms of productivity, in terms of excitement about markets? Yeah, we'd like to do that again. So a couple of quarters, 2 or 3 quarters of underwater numbers that will impact people. People will lose their jobs. But if that 2 or 3 quarters leads to another 1990s, I think we'd all think that was A-okay. But realistically, looking at those numbers that came out of the Beige book today, it is hard to see how the consumer is going to be able to save us. How is, sure, 50, as I've said a couple of times, 3 times, you probably heard me all week talking about this 2-part economy. The old folks that are on Social Security, they own their own house. The house is paid for or almost paid for. Maybe they got a couple of income pieces of property. They got Social Security, they got a pension. Yeah, these folks, they're not worried about whether they go to McDonald's once or twice a week. They can go to the Chart House or to a more expensive restaurant 2 or 3 times a week and not even think about it. Okay, they're still going on vacation this summer. There's no question that the vacation business is going to do very well this year, especially in Europe and other places because of the dollar being so strong. So it's going to be a great year for those folks. They're not worried about it. But for the folks in that part of the business, part of the economy that didn't see a big run up in their stocks, that hasn't seen a big run up in their assets in terms of their houses because they don't own a house, they rent. For those folks that have not kept up with inflation in terms of their payroll and who no longer have the government bailout to help them, no, they're hurting and they're not going to be able to spend. And I don't see any chance that the consumer is going to be able to bail us out in the 3rd quarter. The government's not going to bail us out. And no, I don't think business spending is going to bail us out. So I am pretty sure we're going to have at least 1 quarter of negative GDP. That'll be the 3rd quarter. I have not called the recession yet. I would like to see tomorrow's GDP revision and maybe even see with the PCE on Friday. But I'm still sitting at 30% chance that there will be a recession starting in the 3rd quarter. That may have already started now. We may already be in that recession, but I'll wait and give you that update as I get more information. Okay, so what is the market doing? The other thing I've been calling for has been a 10% drop in the stock market. It's time for the stock market to, anything that gets out all the way over here needs to come back. So I've been talking about a 10% correction. We've got Tesla today was down 56 cents, down 80 cents in the after hours. The Dow Jones was down 411 today. NASDAQ was down 99 and the S&P was down 39. The Magnificent Seven was down except for Apple being up 30 cents and Nvidia being up another $9. In the the after hours, Nvidia is down more than that, $11.47. Well, as you'll see in a minute, the entire market continues down in the after hours, and we will take a look at that in just a second. I wanted to give you those percentages. So the Dow was down a full percent today, NASDAQ down almost 60%, almost 0.6%, and the S&P down 0.74%, Tesla down 0.32%. So Tesla outperformed the market today, technically. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the bonds. Only thing we have, of course, because it's too early, we're going to miss it by 8 minutes here, is the 10-year is down 0.8 basis point at 4.616. It was up huge today. I want to say it was on the order of 7.5 basis points. That's all I've got in front of me right now to be able to report. So then if we go to the oil market, we have oil up a little bit in the after hours, still under 80 cents. So that is not inflationary. If we stay at $80, we stay at $80, 81, 82, 83, we're good. So when we get over $90, that's when we have to start worrying again. We've got Brent unchanged. We've got natural gas unchanged. Natural gas sitting at 249. We have got gold down 440, but it was up earlier. Anyway, right now, 2,336, which is pretty much in the middle of its current trading range. Silver down a little bit, still sitting at 32. Copper down a little bit, sitting at $4.77. The dollars almost exactly unchanged in after hours, or pre-market, I guess they call it. And then we've got the Bitcoin down 639 for the day at 67,649. Once again, right in the middle of its trading range. Okay, now listen to this. After this big drop today, and by the way, as I tried to find out what's going on with the Dow, a lot of credit went to United Health, which apparently is the number. I didn't know this because I spent so much time paying attention to the NASDAQ. Apparently, United Health is the number one most important component of the Dow. There you go. How is a health care company an industrial? I'm not really sure on that. But Boeing is struggling. A lot of major companies that are major components of the Dow are struggling. Well, anyway, 263 down for the Dow. That's 0.68%. That's in addition to 411 today. We got the S&P down 18.25, which is 0.35%. And then the NASDAQ down 85 or 0.45%. So all three continuing to show in this pre-market that is, potentially going to be another big down day tomorrow. Now, the GDP number could change that. How would the GDP, what do we want the GDP to say? Okay, what we saw from the Beige book today could have been encouraging if you're hoping that the Fed cuts earlier and more often, but I don't think the Beige book really gave us that idea. I think what the Beige book gave us is business is not great. I don't think if I mentioned this, that businesses told the Beige book that they're more pessimistic now. And so what I think the Beige book, my general sense of the Beige book was business ain't great and inflation is still not okay. So what do we look for the GDP tomorrow? If the GDP in fact drops from 1.6 to 1.2, does the market see that as a good thing because it's going to mean potential for a rate cut more sooner? Or do they see that as a bad thing because the economy is slowing down and might drop into negative territory? Not sure how to play that, but I'm saying if the first quarter drops to 1.2, this would suggest the second quarter is going to be under 1%, right? Tell me I'm wrong in the comments below. I need to know how to understand this. I don't think anything happened in the second quarter that would cause the GDP to go back up again. I don't think anything happened then. Not from the consumer, not from the government, not from business spending. So where's it going to come from? All right. I think that's all I have to say. Well, I want to tell you to, of course, take a look at the video I did yesterday. Again, Brian Wang. I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to put the card because if you didn't see it yet, I know I'm going to keep hammering until you go take a look at it. It's an important video. It really is. It's about the most important subject at the moment. It's about AI. And I think it will give you greater understanding of what's going on in that world, because I'm just guessing that I'm assuming that you're about the same level as I am. Now, some of you might know a lot more about computers, a lot more about GPUs and IPUs and PPUs and I don't know, all these different kinds of things. You may know a lot more than me, and some of you know a lot less than me. So if you think you're about at my level or just a little bit higher or much lower, then go look at the Brian Wang video from yesterday. Get over here, get that card, and go take a look at it. In the meantime, like, subscribe, hit notify. We've got Scott Walter tomorrow. Yeah, and we've got Brian White on Friday, and all that stuff is coming up. And yeah, I think, yeah, we got yeah, anyway, we got so many cool things happening on the channel. So you do want to hit notify, and then you want to join Patreon. That would be phenomenal. That would be amazing. I would thank you so much. Okay, that's what we got. It's been great talking to you.